but I am delighted to be here on behalf of the Melbourne Women's Fund and the Grants Committee. So we're going to spend time today with our Nurturing Grant finalist, Juno, who have applied for the $35,000 Nurturing Grant for 2021. Before we begin though, I'd like to invite you to join me in the spirit of reconciliation for an acknowledgement of country. And Melbourne Women's Fund sincerely acknowledges Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as first Australians and traditional custodians of the land. We recognise and value their continuous connection to land, sea and community, and we pay respect to elders past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. Thank you. And I'm joining you from the beautiful Boonwurrung land. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we meet Juno. There's just a couple of items to make sure you get the most out of your visit today. As attendees, you'll be muted throughout. However, you can click on the Q&A button at the bottom of the webinar screen to submit a question at any time, and they will be answered towards the end of the visit. You can use the chat function at any time as well to make general comments or chat with other attendees, but it'd be great if you could put your questions in the Q&A column to make it easier for me to make sure I see them all. The meeting will be recorded, and that's so that we can share it with other Melbourne Women's Fund members who are not able to join with us today. So I am delighted to have the opportunity to introduce our finalists and an opportunity to provide an in-depth experience of their organisation and work. So as a brief overview, which they will expand on Juno, their project is seeking support for the Empower Peer Connect social networks for economic mobility and wellbeing. And that falls within the Melbourne Women's Fund's membership's 2021 focus areas of employment and economic empowerment. The project aims to support marginalised women to achieve employment and life goals through peer meetups and group courses. The participants will build work and life skills, social connections, and a mentoring network. The Juno team that are here with us today are the CEO, Jade Blackali, and the Empower Coach, Tessa Douglas, and Senior Practitioner, Shannon Hollick. So I'm delighted to welcome you all here today and would like to hand over now to Jade to start our tour. Over to you, Jade.
Thanks, Jo, and welcome everyone. We, on behalf of Juno, I too would like to acknowledge that we're meeting on traditional Aboriginal land, and for us it's the land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and extend our respect to elders past and present as well. So thank you and welcome. What we thought we'd do this morning is do a really brief little bit about Juno, and then we'll walk you through our office, which is in Preston, and then hopefully we'll have the opportunity to hear your questions and provide a bit more insight for people. So Juno is primarily traditionally been an organisation that works with women who are experiencing homelessness and family violence and trauma throughout the northern suburbs of Melbourne, and we kind of cover everything from the edge of the city out to Sunbury and across all the way to Craigieburn and Eltham, and so it's quite a big area for quite a small organisation, but we've been doing the work for a while, and it's a really exciting and empowering area to work in. And I guess where we've come to is over the last couple of years, we've really been trying to look at how do we work in some different ways with women, and how do we really build women's skills and capacity to make long-term change. So a lot of the work we've been traditionally funded to do has been around responding to homelessness and family violence, you know, in that immediate kind of crisis time, which is super, super important. But we also have seen and have that feeling that lots of people in our sector do about how do we make a longer term difference, and how do we do something that's going to be, you know, have a bigger impact for a longer period of time. And that's kind of where we've come to with this program. So, and we've been doing the Empower program the main sort of the one-on-one part of the Empower program started about 6 months ago, which is providing some fantastic coaching focused work for women who are not currently in a crisis but are really wanting to make long-term change to their economic well-being and the futures for themselves and their families, and that's the work that Tessa's been doing. But what we've been learning from that and hearing from the women is really the importance of them having the opportunity to be together and to learn together and to build those social and employment and skills networks that a lot of them don't have, to support each other and support the goals that they're trying to achieve. And that's where, for us, we're really keen to be able to find some support for the Empower Connect program, because it will really give that additional layer to the one-on-one work that we've been doing. So we might do I'm just having a look at my camera person. We might do a little bit of a walk around and show you where we are. And then we'll catch up again. Okay, thanks to Alice, who is going to be our camera person.
Cool. So,
Okay, so just coming out of my office, and we've got a 2-storey building in Preston, fairly close to the main shops and things, which is a great location, close to the station. And in this building we have all of our staff, but it's also our main site for seeing women and doing work with them. So whilst we go out and about across all of the northern suburbs, this is our home base. So down here we've got a number of offices and a couple of rooms where we see clients. So we'll just show you the spaces where we meet with people individually. This is one of our meeting spaces. And then we've tried to create a bit of a bigger space because we also have a lot of women who come with children who are with them during. We have another space. This is another space which also has some, tables and things to be able to do a bit of practical work. Often women are needing us to help them with all kinds of forms and applications and, the bureaucracy of life that they need some support with. So we sort of do a lot of that in here. And then I'll show you, I'm going to so this is our tech hub and children's space. So we've been really lucky over the last 18 months or so to be able to set up this space, which provides an opportunity for women to come in and both use technology themselves, because a lot of the women we work with don't have great digital access at home. They might not have computers, they can't afford internet, particularly during COVID, that's put a lot of pressure on people when so much of connecting with everyone has become digital. So in this space, it does a couple of things. One is it provides an opportunity for people just to come in and use the space, but it also provides an opportunity for our staff to work either in small groups or one-on-one with people to help build their skills, to show them how to navigate some of the systems and things that they need to, and including our Empower Women. It's a great spot. It's it's been used a little intermittently over the last 6 months or so because of COVID, but already we're starting to have women look to coming back in again a lot more, and it just provides an opportunity for us to be able to do that approach, which is about showing people how to do things and supporting them to do them, which is really kind of what our Empower Connect program and a lot of our programs are about, is moving away from us doing things for people and helping them develop the skill to do it themselves. So we might go upstairs. As we walk through, this is our entrance area, a big weight. We've got a small kitchenette for women to make lunch, grab a coffee, heat up their baby's food, that kind of stuff that's accessible to everybody. And then upstairs we have most of our staff. So I'm going to not talk while I walk up the stairs so that I remember my own. is Tessa, who you just met before. This is our Empower staff space where Shazia and Tessa do their fantastic work.
Thanks, Tessa.
And then through here is our kitchen and sort of staff space. So one of the challenges of being where we are is we don't have lots and lots of natural light in our building, but we have this fantastic room which gets all the light for the whole building, and so it's a great space for staff to be able to chill out, for us to have meetings, we would make lunch. And we just find that it's been a really great space to come together, really. And particularly, you know, a lot of our staff are out and about seeing people most of the day and don't necessarily have a lot of time in the office. So to have somewhere that's, you know, it's comfortable and, you know, got some lights and we can kind of catch up with each other. It's been a really great addition since we've been in this office. And one of the other things that we do quite a bit of is we really try and focus on social connection and involving women who are quite isolated, who've been in our programs, or they're still in our programs, and so we've done a range of wellbeing activities. We've been doing art and things that some of them made recently in a pottery group. So we try to have some sort of semi-regular events that give people the opportunity to meet other people, connect, take some time out from the stress and, you know, challenges that they're kind of working through. But also we really try and give people, again, some of those things that they can then go away and do on their own later. So, you know, during COVID, when we weren't able to run some of those groups in person, we delivered art packs out to women and sent them, you know, we did some Zoom stuff, and so people could kind of still have some of that experience, but also do some of those things themselves. And people talked about how great it was as a way of switching off from COVID and the kids and everything else that was going on. So that social connection and that opportunity to participate in all kinds of different ways, you know, support our women with. This is our that space. I'll let Alice
Give you the tour.
Person show you the view.
Cool.
Right. And then we might just go through. So the rest of the building up here is pretty much bathrooms and offices. We'll just say a quick hello to our case management area. It's not. Hello. Hello. This is Tess, one of our case managers, and Jacinta and Rachel. So this is our space where our very hard-working staff connect with all of the women that we're supporting. So, this is.
Let you get back to it. Bye.
Thanks. And Shannon, who you've also met on the screen, who works in here with Pi, is our senior practitioner who's working with her today.
Thanks, Shannon.
That's our building, really. We might want to move back down. It's easier to sit and talk.
Yeah, sounds good.
Hi. That's our building and the space that we're in. So, and I guess in terms of our overall work that Juno does, we work with probably about 350 women a year, and a similar number of children. About half the women we work with come with children with them. And that work's spread across sort of two main areas. One is homelessness, so supporting women who are experiencing all kinds of challenges to do with homelessness and family violence. And we provide the only service in Victoria that provides specialist family violence workers who go out into homelessness services and do some really specific kind of work there. So that sits alongside our Empower program, which is the one that we're looking for some support for today. But it's a really interesting and really great opportunity, I think, because it means we are working with women at a time in their life where things are really hard, and they're really in a crisis. But being able to have programs like the Empower program means that we're then able to also work with them and see and support them at a time and space where things are not in such a crisis for them. And it's great to be able to be part of both those kind of parts of people's journeys, really.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute there, Jade. Thank you so much for that walk around. It looks like a really calm and relaxing space for women who no doubt are quite distressed and experiencing a lot of life chaos at the time they come to you. Would that be right?
Yeah, definitely. I think for a lot of our women, coming to us is at one of the most challenging points, in their lives, and there's not a lot of stability. So it's good to be able to offer a safe, kind of welcoming space for people.
Excellent. So are you ready to take some questions that have come through? Great.
Yep, sure.
So, people are saying thank you for the tour, and they think it does look like a really lovely space for people. People are just curious to know how the family violence workers are currently funded, and sort of a general question about your ongoing funding. So where does the core of that come from?
So the core of our ongoing funding comes from the Department of Families, Fairness and Housing, so the old DHHS, and that has always been the core funding for the organisation, and the majority of that core funding comes through homelessness, and our funding is given to us to support single women who are at risk of homelessness. What happened is we were finding that we were doing a lot of work because we're one of the only women-specific service in the north who's doing homelessness work. We would often have a lot of family violence clients coming through as well, and women who were made homeless because of family violence. And we were finding that there was a real gap in the system where women would get caught between that homelessness and the broader family violence sector. And so when the Royal Commission into Family Violence happened, the organisation, it was people before me, but the organisation put forward some really great information and submission to the Royal Commission about these gaps that were happening for these women. And so through that process, we were given what was originally 2 years of funding to provide a specialist family violence response funded through Family Safety Victoria, the department's family violence arm. And at the end of those 2 years, that became ongoing and recurrent funding. So now both our family violence service and our homeless service have ongoing department funding.
So perhaps we could move over then to Tessa to tell us a little bit more about Tessa. You're doing the training for the Empower program?
Yeah, so I am the lead coach, and we have a second coach who's just started in the last month, Shazia. So I began in January and started working with 9 women in March. So kind of just going through one-on-one coaching and sort of mapping out where people are at in their lives, and how they can set goals for themselves, kind of with my coaching support that will lead to greater economic security, basically. But a really interesting part of the program is it's very trauma informed and trauma recovery based as well. So we kind of have an understanding of how trauma impacts the brain, and the coaching model helps to kind of rebuild different skills that are impacted upon by trauma and poverty and toxic stress. So yeah, like a real rebuilding of like executive functioning skills and just developing confidence. And yeah, that has been a really big part of the one-on-one coaching.
So what would be different for the submission that you've put in? What is it that would fund? What would be different from just not just, that's not the right word, but from the one-on-one coaching?
Yeah, as well as so earlier in the year we did have one group session just here at Juno, and it was for the women to learn about a financial literacy program that we've created in partnership with a local neighbourhood house called The Bridge, called Money Matters, that's run by a financial counsellor specifically for women. And kind of the women all came together, and we had two of the educators from The Bridge come and speak about the program and just kind of have a bit of a discussion around like what are some gaps in our like financial literacy knowledge and what would you like to learn, and kind of just addressing the fact that a lot of the women have experienced financial abuse from partners and not been allowed to handle their own money. So kind of having the group together to discuss sort of like created a lot of momentum and excitement for like continuing to learn about further like financial literacy. So with Empower Connect, that's kind of our aim is to just bring in speakers and have different kind of skills-based workshops that help to really build employability skills, connect people to different education opportunities, kind of just build their networks in terms of their connections with one another, because we know a lot of the women are quite isolated and may have been separated from family and friends through being in a violent relationship. So it's sort of, yeah, both building their connections with one another and the women sharing their goals and kind of encouraging one another, and then also the really practical, vital element of just increasing like social capital and helping them to connect to different networks and just learn new skills like resume writing and job searching, and have talks from women who've been in similar positions and are now working. Yeah, that is kind of our two main aims for the group work component.
So Jade, would you like to say a little bit more about how you've designed that? What's the evidence it's based on?
Yeah, so the Empower program, and as we were looking, I guess we went looking for programs that really were finding solutions that worked for women in poverty and trauma, and we came across an organisation that's been doing similar work for about 15 years in Boston in the US, and with some amazing outcomes. And they've grown to do three things. One is that they provide programs, but equally they support other organisations to develop and think about programs that might work in their context. So we looked at them and went, oh wow, that looks really interesting and really successful. But we also then went, that's Boston, that's not Melbourne, that's, it's different. Whilst there's some great outcomes, it's also a really different environment, and we didn't want to just sort of grab something and drop it into us and go, that'll work. And so we really wanted to look at what was working, but we also really wanted to make sure we were best set up for it to work here in our context. And so we were very lucky. We had a grant from Lord Mayor's Fund to really do some work to actually understand the programs and to change and develop and adapt and to look at things that might need to be different for a program like that to work for us. And so we've been really lucky before we started Empower to be able to do that. And the peer support and peer connection component really came across really, really strongly as a key part for the women that were working on that program. So the work from the organisation in Boston has now spread out, and they support over 120 organisations across, a lot of North America, but also the Netherlands and the Philippines and some other kind of places to do the work. But really the key message around that is you need to do it in a way that works for you. And so we've spent quite a bit of time prior to really understand what's similar and what's different, both culturally, but also systems-wise. Obviously, the housing system is very different, the welfare system is very different. And so we've been really lucky to be able to have some time before we kind of began, to really try and think about an Australian version and take what we thought would work and leave behind things we thought maybe wouldn't. And so whilst this is the first time this program's being done in Australia as this program, there's a lot of evidence about the approach. And I think the aspects that Tessa mentioned, sort of the 2 or 3 key things to the approach really are about coaching, so that you're providing people the opportunity to do the work that often case managers will do for people, but for them to do it for themselves with support. So they're building the skills, being trauma informed and understanding the impacts that trauma and poverty and things have had on people, and also that ability to connect and build networks and connect with other people that are going through a similar sort of scenario to you. And they're kind of probably the 3 key components that we've really taken from the model.
So I've got a couple of other questions here for you from the members, and please, people, post them through. But before I go to those, Shannon, would you like to say a little bit about your role so people get to meet you?
Hi, everyone. So I'm the senior practitioner for the Hume Moreland region at Juno. So I support a specialist family violence worker and 2 housing case managers as well. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So can I ask you, beyond the 30 women, what is the potential for this program to be continued, or is it a once-off commitment by Juno?
Look, it's definitely, from our point of view, not a once-off commitment. It's really, I think, as I mentioned before, whilst we've been traditionally funded to do sort of shorter-term crisis work, this sense of what do we actually do to make a difference in the long term is really been what's driving us over the last couple of years. And we're just about to sign a new strategic plan that really puts this kind of program at the centre of what the organisation is wanting to do. So for us, I think the 30 to 40 women that we work with through this program are obviously incredibly important to us, and we want fantastic outcomes for them. But equally, at the same time, it's an opportunity for us to really look at this kind of model and this way of working. We've got some great evaluators who are just coming on board to work with us right through the program to help us understand what works and what doesn't, and what we need to change. But what we're really looking to do is to come up with a bit of a model that says, here's a different way to work with women who've experienced poverty and trauma that can have some long-term outcomes, and transfers the skills, I guess, that a lot of workers are often, being busy doing things for people, but we often don't have the opportunity to give the women we're working with or the people we're working with those skills themselves, because we'll all have difficulties happen in our lives. And I think it's important that people feel confident to respond themselves, and not always need services or feel that they need services to step in. So by supporting women's economic, we know, there's a lot of economic basis to disadvantage for women in Australia. And so by building those skills and capacities, we're hoping that those women will go on, and have the lives that they choose for themselves and their families. So for us, it's about the 30 women, but it's equally about how do we learn what works, and then how do we grow that? And, and that's partly the organisation in Boston. What they've done is they provide service, but they support other organisations to do that work, and they're really keen to work with us around whether or not into the future we could play some of that role in Australia in terms of supporting other organisations who are wanting to try different approaches.
So another question for you. Can you tell us how those 30 women will be selected for the program, and an idea of who they are?
Tessa, do you want to? answer this?
Yeah, so we already have, we've done 2 intakes so far, and we'll do another one early next year. So at the moment we have 23 women, and some of them have gone through housing case management here at Juno, but then we also have a lot of like external referrers, such as Good Samaritans, Wire, yeah, a lot of other services are kind of learning more about our program and are able to refer their clients if they feel they're kind of in a place of stability with their housing and aren't currently experiencing family violence, and just sort of motivated and ready to start setting goals for their sort of economic future.
Thank you. So another question here for you. So what happens for the children of the women while they're in the program?
Look, I think it varies a lot. So some women have children with them, some don't. Most of them, I'm looking at Tessa as I'm speaking, I think most of them are school-aged children. Obviously, during COVID, that's been a real challenge for the women to have been balancing homeschooling. I think whilst at the moment we're not doing any direct work with the children, I think what we really believe, and I guess what we've seen in other scenarios, is that change in both the economic situation but also women's ability to set goals and plan and be in a space to do that has a really positive flow-on impact for their kids. Actually in the US, they've set up another version of the program which actually works directly with supporting women to learn how to coach their children through goal setting and achieving, and that's still a fairly new program, and one that you need to have been doing the work for a few years before you kind of can get trained in how to do it with children as well, but definitely something we would be interested in and open to as well, because we know that obviously what's happening for parents has a huge impact, both positively and negatively, on their kids.
And I think just to add on that as well, like with some of the research coming from Boston, it kind of points out that when the women are like using these goal setting processes themselves, they can kind of naturally start to pass that on to their children as well. And I think like with a lot of the women that I've been working with, one of the questions that we go through in the goal setting process is like, why is this goal important to me? And often like what will come out is like, I want my children to see that I can do this, and that if I can do this, then they can do this and they can achieve anything as well. So I think even though like we're not working directly with the children, there will always kind of be like that flow on positive impact to them as well.
Thank you, Tessa. Shannon, did you have anything you wanted to add about the women who'll be in the program?
No, I think Jade and Tessa have really covered everything. Yeah, all good.
Good. So one last question it might be. What would be the plan for if there's further disruption from COVID, if you've done an intake of women? How would you, what's the backup plan, I suppose, is being asked?
Yeah, I think we've had to practice the backup plan a couple of times already. I think Tessa and Shazia have done a great job in, in supporting people via Zoom, via, all kinds of technology, and supporting women to make sure they've got access to the technology and that they know how to use it as well, because that's often what we find is, it's one thing to offer Zoom, but if you don't know how to use it, it's not much use, or you can't afford it, it's not much use. And I think in terms of the group program, I think that what the women have said to us is, look, for the group stuff, we really want to be able to come together, and we really value that. But I think they're also, everyone's got very used to that not always being able to happen. So I think a bit of a mixed modality where, maybe some things are done in person and some things are done via Zoom, depending on, where we're at with numbers and things like that. I think people are pretty used to now. A lot of their services have been having to operate that way. But I would say as well that I think the group work probably even more so, Tessa, than the one-on-one people are hoping to do as much of that together as they can.
Yeah, I think with the group work, like it's something that we've spoken about from the start, but with the lockdowns, just not been able to really do it. But it's something everyone has been so excited about. And, you know, like every woman in Empower came to the first one, and it was like so lovely to see women just kind of connecting with others and sharing numbers to meet up at the local playground with their kids. So yeah, I think it's something they're all really wanting, like especially coming out of such a hard lockdown with being disconnected from friends or, you know, losing different friendships. I think, yeah, it's kind of the perfect time to start it up.
Great, thank you. Oh, one more, another question's just popped in. Will there be ongoing community partnerships in the program and other local groups and services like you did with the Bridge Neighbourhood House on financial literacy?
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking at seeing if Tessa wants to answer. Do you want to answer, Tessa, or do you want me to?
Yeah. Well, we can both. Yes, we're wanting to just build more and more partnerships. So we've been speaking with Darebin Council recently about a digital literacy course, kind of for beginners, medium and advanced, to kind of suit where women are at with technology use. We also are speaking with Women Can, which is another kind of education and employment organisation. Yeah, like quite a few different ones, and we're hoping to have some of these other organisations come in and give talks at the group work so women can find out a little bit more about them and then go and explore them themselves if they're interested. Yeah, so we're really we're wanting to have a big variety, like Fitted for Work is another one. Are there any others, Jade, that you can?
Yeah, I think we're developing some great housing partnerships with some of the longer term housing providers for women. And I think what we learned from the first sort of smaller intake we took as well is that one of the things is we can assume what people are going to want to know and what interests them. But, you know, one of the things I know Tessa's talked about, you know, that a number of women have talked about, I'd really be interested to maybe start my own business or something, which is not something that we'd necessarily gone, oh, they're all going to want to do that. But there seems to be a group of women that do. And so that sort of thing is we now then go, okay, well, what partnerships can we find that can support people to learn more about that? So we've kind of got some ideas and some networks and partnerships that we already are part of and that we want to build on. But we're also really conscious that, you know, it's about the women making choices and deciding how they want things to be. So, you know, it is also about responding to what's coming forward for people.
Great. Well, I've probably got time for just this one last question. Can you just say a bit more, please, about the evaluation and who will be doing it?
Yeah, so we're doing our evaluation for this program through an organisation called For Purpose Evaluations. So they work across the community sector doing evaluations, and have just recently won a few kind of awards for some of their work with women's organisations. I think for us, what we're really wanting to do is to kind of have an evaluation for this project, which builds on and recognises, you know, what's happened for the women and their things like their confidence and their skills and their outcomes. But also we're really conscious that going into the future, we need to think about where this kind of program would be funded and how this kind of program would be funded as well if we want it to be sustainable. So the other part of the evaluation will also look at the, you know, the cost benefits and the savings costs for the outcomes that we're achieving. So we're really looking at trying to get a good understanding and working with For Purpose Evaluations to look at both the qualitative, you know, outcomes for women and what their experience has been, but also really practical outcomes in terms of employment and education and things like that, but also around, you know, what areas of savings in the long term there are by not needing to continuously provide crisis services or repeatedly provide crisis services to families.
Great. Well, that might be a good place for us to wrap up.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for your time, and to our participants for joining us and for those great questions. Just before everyone goes, can I just remind everyone that the Melbourne Women's Fund Information Night video, which has information about Juno and all the other 2021 finalists, is now available on our website. And due to the continuing uncertainty, we are all going to, with the transition from lockdown, the grant award celebration will now be fully virtual, and it'll be held on Thursday, the 18th of November. So please save that date. And finally, our sincere gratitude to Juno and all the finalists and to our members, because of course, without our membership, our grants would not be possible. So thank you again, everyone who's been able to join us today, and we look forward to seeing you at the Grants Awards on the 18th of November. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
And enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.